Welcome. This is MoneyHeart, where we explore the emotional side of money. I'm Camille Diaz, and today we're discussing feeling irresponsible. My guest is Danielle McCarthy. She's a financial educator. Danielle, welcome to MoneyHeart.
Thank you for having me, Camille. Thank you for letting me come and share my story, because I feel like a lot of people out there may actually feel this and not realize that they were feeling it. I always thought that I was pretty smart with money, pretty smart as a person, pretty responsible and that type of thing. And then early on in my childhood, I was about 8 years old, had like $2 worth of fines at the local library, and was given $10 by a family member, but wasn't going to be able to get to the library for like 2 weeks. And so of course there was a local convenience store, $8, an 8-year-old with $10. Hello. That's like, winning the lottery. Like, what else are you going to do with it? So yes. Of course, I'm out and about hanging out with friends and, pedaling bikes all around the neighborhood. And we stopped at the convenience store. And of course, I'm big man on campus because I've got this $10 bill. I can buy everybody a drink and some candy, right? As well as get some cool shades and some other cool things that, convenience stores had. So all said and done, I get back to the house that evening, and my grandmother comes up and she's like, "Where did you get the sunglasses? Where did you get this?" Then she kind of asked that big question, right? "Where's the $10 that your grandfather gave you?" And I'm like, well, so it was hot and we were thirsty, and then comes the lecture. "You're the most irresponsible person. That money was for the library dues, for not returning your books. And of course, because you have dues, obviously you didn't return the books, which means you're irresponsible that way too." So now I get in that lecture, I'm slammed with irresponsible with money, irresponsible because I didn't turn my library books back in on time, and hence the dues. And it just kind of cascaded. Well, that stayed with me. That was at 8 years old. I'm now well into my 40s. And just recently, probably in the last month or so, doing some work as a money educator, working with some clients around money and teaching about money, and being taught about money by a mentor, was doing an exercise, and it was talking about, are you a hoarder or a spender? Why might you be these? And all of a sudden this word irresponsible came up, and all of a sudden that memory just pinged very vibrantly in my head. And as I started kind of doing a little bit more, I was just like, oh my gosh, I do feel like I'm irresponsible. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm irresponsible with money. Not that I ever really have been irresponsible with money, but then that kind of blew out, which I didn't realize. I was like, well, man, where else do I kind of feel like I'm not responsible with stuff? And then I started kind of looking around and realized that I made sure from the time I was 8 years old until now that I wasn't irresponsible. I became a straight A student, and I made sure that I was in it to win it academically. I was in it to win it on time everywhere. And being raised by the military, also, we kind of have the little perspective of, if you are 5 minutes early to your appointment, you're late. And if you're on time, you're already late. So you always show up 15 minutes early. So it was there. And then it just kind of cascaded into, I didn't want to be an irresponsible parent. So I became very particular about certain structures and being a parent, and raising 4 sons. The calendar was color coded so that everybody got to places where they were supposed to be on time with whatever for whatever activity, and really pushed myself to be this very, not necessarily regimented, but definitely very organized, very responsible person. When it came to that, even raising a child on the spectrum, again, not wanting to be perceived as an irresponsible parent. So I educated myself all about autism, became a special education teacher to truly understand even more in that realm. And that flowed into my teaching profession as well, being a responsible professional. What did that look like? Going after accolades, going after achievements and that type of thing. And then even to the point that I still color code my calendar, my own personal calendar. I still run an old school paper calendar. It's still color coded. Thankfully, Google Calendar is still color coded. So and those match.
Them up.
They do match. Like seriously, there's a purple appointment on the Google Calendar. There is a purple appointment matching on the paper calendar. Like that is a thing in my life. But anyway, that irresponsibility piece really kind of stuck with me until I did that work through with that exercise, and kind of just sat back, and then the next couple of days journaled about it and kept talking about it, and kind of just where it was coming up, and kind of put together where that one lecture from my grandmother that then went home with me to my parents' house to my mom and to my stepfather, who then I also got reiterated that same lecture of being irresponsible, not turning in the books, spending the money, having to pay the money back to my grandfather, and then earning the $10 for myself to then pay off my own fines, but then also being grounded from going to the library.
Sure. That must have been really hard, because you know, when you described your day, you were just coming in off of this great day. Yes. We were riding bikes and partying. We had sunglasses and drinks and candy. Like that was just the ultimate kid fabulous day. And then you just come home and get slammed. Like that's pretty rough.
Yeah, that was just like douse. That was just like water and whoosh, gone. Yeah, and I think that's what did it, because you're just kind of left with that feeling of how total empowerment to all of a sudden to total just, I suck. And it just brings your whole body down. Like even watching myself here, you know, I'm up and then I'm down. Yeah, I can still feel that whole feeling of being doused upon at that time. And how that just kind of kept forward. Like that was amazing to me. And to kind of put that together almost 40 some years later was like, whoa, that's impressive on how one simple experience networked and kind of, you know, webbed itself out to various areas across my entire adulthood.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you remember, or do you remember ever making the decision to not have that happen again? Or I'm going to be the most irresponsible? You did.
I did. No, that's where I became very like, I started pinpointing what my money would, you know, down to the dot. And I was actually just in a conversation the other day about somebody joking about their mom still balancing a checkbook. And I was like, wait, I still do that. We don't have to do that anymore. Like those are the things that are still there. I became very cognizant and very aware of what I was doing with my money, how I was doing with my money, and still, and even like, just recently found myself going, you know what, I think I'm going to stop and get an ice cream cone on the way home, going, oh, that's a little irresponsible. I mean, it's a $2 ice cream cone. Let's be real, right? $2 is really not that much, but I had to still work there. I'm like, no, I'm not being irresponsible. I'm allowed to have a $2 ice cream if I want to have a $2 ice cream, so that it's still kind of sitting there a little bit as like a little mosquito. It's not this big overarching wet blanket feeling anymore, but it's interesting where it still comes up, and I'm like, that's not irresponsible to stop on a hot day and grab an ice cream cone, or to stop on a cold day and grab a hot drink. You know, it's just either way.
I'm guessing you have a budget for fun stuff.
Yes, and my budget, as much as I still teach people to stick to their budget, I'm a little bit more flexible with budgeting, and the reason being is 3 years ago, after I lost my husband, and the financial devastation that ensued because of his death, coupled with my own health issues 8 weeks prior to his death, totally threw all of our budget out the window. We didn't have, my sons and I didn't have a chance to really stick to budgets. It was pretty much hand to mouth at that point as far as money. It was, you know, I had a small little bit of money coming from my husband once he died through his policy. But then there was, things just didn't work out the way life I had, you know, anticipated that part of life would have occurred. I would have not ever expected to have 3 life-threatening complications coming out of a surgery in under 8 weeks. And then, like I said, at that 8-week period, that 8 week culminating with my husband's death, no one could have seen that coming, right? And even doing best laid plans, having retirement, having this, having that, you know, having savings accounts, having all of that, But when you have mounting medical bills, you have the costs associated with a death and just everything that was going on. And the plan was, as soon as after my husband died, because it was kind of known that he would at some point, I would just go back into the workforce, very simply. And obviously when you have a chronic condition that's not allowing that to occur, you're and I was also still dealing with a critical condition at the time as well. That wasn't the case. And so funds dried up pretty fast. And luckily I had some amazing people who stepped in and helped and shore up some of that for us.
Mm-hmm.
But I still ended up pulling retirement, still ended up pulling other savings and other accounts out. And again, because I wasn't able to work, and with the condition I had, sepsis, I wasn't able to work. And so when you have 18 waking hours and time to think, there was a point where I was sitting there very clearly remembering feeling absolutely irresponsible again.
Wow.
If I had done better, I could have, should have, would have, the shooting on yourself. And kind of coming, the reason I don't have the money now is because we weren't responsible back then. And it was just this really weird juxtaposition. We could have planned better. We should have planned better. You're still irresponsible. That tape kept playing.
Right.
And as I've rebuilt financially, coming out of that health issue, coming out of my husband's death, and rebuilding the life that I have now, it's kind of been an amazing renaissance, which is great.
Yeah.
And but then coming together, I'm kind of looking back, and I can look back now and go, we weren't irresponsible with money. We never really have been. Now, knowing now what I know now, I wish I could go back and change a couple of things, but there's not a whole lot, because then I wouldn't have the epiphanies and the insights that I have now. So
just to kind of let people know, since they don't know your story as closely as I know, your husband was not, 75, 80 years old, expected to pass away. He was pretty young.
My husband was 46 when he died. He had he was a total 100% disabled veteran due to combat illness and injuries that he had sustained. And his heart attack actually took all of us by surprise. Even his team, his medical team took us all by surprise, because he had just had a clear bill of health for his health. He was actually still very healthy. And I actually was staying at home caring for him. I retired from education in 2012, and I was his full-time caregiver. And, so we knew it was coming. We figured it was another 5-10 years in the future. Was not, we were hoping to have him hit age 60, 65 type thing. The heart attack came out of nowhere with no warning, no nothing. And it instantly killed him.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then I had sepsis and a pulmonary emboli event within that 8 weeks coming out of a surgery. So yeah, that was definitely, talk about being physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then financially devastated like that. Just, you have to rethink everything about your life at that point.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Probably more than most of us would ever think we could handle.
Yep. And there are days I'm very surprised that I handled it. And I hope I handled it with a little bit of dignity and a little bit of grace. And
Well,
I have a Facebook memory today that a dear friend stopped by, and she actually does say almost that verbatim. She's like, Danielle's been through in this 8 weeks more than most people could have handled mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, with all of the health issues, plus the death of her husband. And she's done so with dignity and grace. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I just met you. I must have just met you right after that happened, because I want to say we met at a national event, since we're part of the same company, that fall. Or so, when I met you, you seemed just as wonderful then, just as friendly and smiling and amazing. So
yeah, that was a little bit, it was about a year after David's death. And,
Okay.
but I was still going through some major life changes because I still ended up having to relocate by choice, not necessarily because I had to, but by choice. And I was still working through a big financial challenge and working with one of the agencies to ensure I had surviving spouse benefits. So we were still working through some of that. And again, that tape of being irresponsible, did we not put the paperwork in place? Did we not do this appropriately? Did we not do this? And just, again, when you have nothing but time on your hands, you can get into the weeds in your head really quickly and get really lost. And to have that epiphany almost 3 years later of that's what I was feeling was totally irresponsible, of not putting certain things in place, not being a responsible person, not, being irresponsible with money, those types of things. And then having to ask friends and family to help, being on government assistance. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that, but there's a point in that you kind of just feel helpless and hopeless to help yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And realize that the abundance that's coming to you is because of the friends and family around you. And that's what was happening, was the universe was showing me abundance, even though I couldn't see it, I could feel it, and I just couldn't acknowledge it at the time. But understandably so. I had just had literally everything stripped from me. And that whole traversing of a dark night of a soul it's not for the faint of heart. And, when you have to come out with a whole new, different yet intact identity, like I'm still the same person, but there's definitely new changes on the other side, especially being a widow. You find a whole different level of courage and strength and resilience that you would have never thought you had. And you still don't think you have, but it's there.
It's there. You have
It's
it.
there. Thank you.
Have it. Just occurred to me while you were talking that while you were going through all of this, your kids were still living at home, right? This wasn't like when a lot of people think of somebody losing a spouse, the kids are older and they're grown up and you're dealing with it, but your kids were young enough, they were still home with you.
So 2 of my sons were still living with me. So my kids currently are in their 20s. They're all in their 20s and legal to drink. So that gives you the time frame. I still had 2 living at home, one who is on the spectrum, and they were going through this too. And in fact, my third son actually came home from college, one to help take care of his mom, expecting to go back to college. He has since given up his college career. He ended up giving up his college career to stay home to take care of me, because I physically couldn't take care of myself. Like I had to have assistance and protective oversight just to go to the bathroom, and couldn't cook for myself, couldn't do certain things for myself. So that amazing child of mine came through in some really big ways, and he financially helped take care of my household as well. And that still makes you kind of feel irresponsible, right? Because a 20-something-year-old child shouldn't have to come home from college to take care of his mom. And financially, like that, again, there's still part of that little feeling irresponsible still comes up a little bit. But no, I had 2 living at home. I still have 2 living at home right now, as we are still in the process of rebuilding. And it's going well. It's just when you are that far down, rebuilding does take some time.
Sure. Yeah. It's not going to be rebuilt in a day or a month or whatever, but
No.
your health is definitely quite a bit improved.
Much improved. I came off of oxygen full time, and I have since done several strenuous and adventurous hikes. One of the most famous hikes is the Manitou Incline in Manitou Springs, Colorado, which is a 1 mile straight up the side of a mountain in 2,000 feet. Like you have a 2,000 feet gain in a mile.
Wow.
And I did it. I
did
it.
That's
and I
awesome.
came back down the mountain. And that same year I did another 5K, essentially kind of up a different mountain as part of the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. They have this, the bottom of the zoo goes up to a shrine, which is, again, it's 2 miles up, and you can probably gain another 1,000, 1,500 feet or so. And I came back down. So yeah, no, I now walk about 5 miles a day. So Yeah. To be told that that was something that would never ever happen and to be able to do it. And then my sights this year are to do the incline 2 times, to do the shrine as well, and probably find 2 or 3 more hikes to do that are pretty intense that I'm sure my doctor's probably going, that's a really good idea. I think just be careful.
Yes, and you mentioned that you're in Denver, so I think most people know the altitude there is no joke.
So actually I'm in Colorado Springs, so
Colorado
just
Springs.
south.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm in
Yep, through the
Colorado
mountains.
Springs, just south. So we're actually a little bit higher as far as elevation for Denver. We're about
Wow.
another 1,000 feet higher. But yeah, so again, just keep moving and grooving. Don't let whatever feels like it's going to stop you. Just kind of, you'll find a way if you really want to.
Yeah, you definitely will. And you
Thanks.
absolutely have. It's so awesome.
Yes.
I loved hearing that story. I
Yes.
didn't know any of that before about the hikes. I enjoy
Yep.
hiking as well, and that's one of the things that that I've done a bit of. And
Yep.
yeah, very cool, very cool.
Yep.
I guess I was just kind of thinking if you have any tips or suggestions for people who are, kind of feeling that irresponsible thing, and how, like for you, you said it still comes up and triggers for a moment and you're like, no, I can buy ice cream, we're okay.
Right.
Just a way to maybe start on that work or start on that journey of, okay, let's see where I actually am responsible and what I've done. I mean, you're telling me you were color coding stuff and I'm going, whoa, that's awesome. Sounds very responsible to me.
I've color coded since my kids were little, and even before that. The way I came around to wanting to feel more empowered and not so irresponsible about stuff, but specifically with money, I started learning about money. I went to an amazing class, learned some amazing principles about money, and kind of went, that's interesting. Why didn't I know this before? Where can I get more information? And I started asking questions. I became that learner. I'm a lifelong learner as it is. But then I started going, okay, so the more I learned about money, the more I learned that there was so much more that I didn't know. Like, we do think we know about money. Like, okay, we have a checking account, we have a credit card. We kind of sort of know how those work. We may have a mortgage, kind of sort of knows how that works. But truly, how does money work? And I started reading books, everything from Money Master the Game to Make Your Kid a Money Genius to The Millionaire Mind, The Millionaire Mindset, Six Figure Women, I think is the name of the title. Like, anything that had to do with money, I just became a voracious reader and keep going through it. And happened to be at a workshop the other night, again, where we were kind of doing some money work, and it said, what around money, and then we scored that little quiz. And again, it comes down to, are you a hoarder or a spender? I actually fall somewhere right in the middle. But when I spend, I definitely feel like I'm being irresponsible, even when it's like buying groceries. Like, I'm still working through parts of that, but then I'm also the hoarder in that I do have, I do pay myself first. I do make sure my savings is, and also there's a part of me that doesn't want a repeat of that ever happening again, of what I just went through. So finding new tools and resources and ways to protect me, my family, my financial household, and my best asset, which is my ability to earn income, and also to make my money work for me. I found some amazing ways to do that. So again, it was just learning. And I think, and that's what led me to become a financial educator and educating people out there. Speaks to my background being a retired special education teacher and wanting to just kind of, again, educate and teach people about money. Just become that lifelong learner and keep educating and learn of what's out there. And I think sometimes we feel like, oh, it's too overwhelming. There's too many moving parts, too many moving this. I don't understand this. There's too much jargon. There's too many technical terms and all of this. And so it shuts us down. Pick one word a day. 1 word a day, read a book about something for 15 minutes, listen to a podcast about money, talk to somebody about money, find somebody that you admire or want their level of wealth and find out what they're doing. One of my favorites is several different people across the board. So I go out and I find their books. I listen to their podcasts. If they do an interview, I read their interview. If they have some sort of internet challenge or, whatever, I go listen to them, because success leaves clues. And so I want to be successful when it comes to money and not feel irresponsible anymore. And I don't feel irresponsible, but it also made me wonder how many other people are out there that might be an underlying thought process they have about themselves and not realize that they have it. Because we all kind of know there's the shame piece, there's the guilt piece, there's all of these other pieces. But that irresponsibility piece really came up, because I'm wondering how many other 8-year-olds have had that ching $10 for the day and were, like, hey, I can buy the candy and I can do this, only to come home and be told that was irresponsible.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for allowing me to come on and do this. This was fun.
This was very fun. Yes. And thank you for your family's sacrifice and for everything you shared with us today. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you as well to our listeners and our viewers. I'm your host, Camille Diaz. This show is sponsored by Serenity Financial, a Five Rings financial agency specializing in financial education, living benefits, and guaranteed lifetime income. Be sure to follow MoneyHeart on social media at MoneyHeart Show and on our website, moneyheartshow.com. Danielle, would you like to share today's money mantra?
I would totally love to share today's money mantra, because it came up during my walk this morning and then presented itself here today, which is, I am responsible with money.
Thank you so much.
While you're out there pounding ground, doing whatever, finding serenity, and you too will be responsible with money.
Love it. Thank you.